There are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and everyone having a massive debate about who should be in England's midfield for their international team. And here we go again, because on this video I've got, well, I'm going to cover exactly that topic and where England should go, who they should pick for Scotland and beyond. And this is all sparked by the fact that when you saw the updated England squad announced for the match against Scotland a week on Saturday, guess who's back? Back again. Manu Tuilagi. His name was just there at the bottom of the list of the backs. Unfortunately, Ollie Lawrence still rehabilitating, so is Marcus Smith for that matter, but the presence of Manu Tuilagi in the squad has sparked the conversation again. Who should be in England's midfield? A conversation that we have been having for years. And I don't know, or maybe we are closer to an answer actually. Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping to do over the course of this video. I've got my thoughts and I'll share them with you, and I want to know yours in the comments below. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. So, Ollie Lawrence is not there, but this is the man, isn't it? I think everybody, most England fans tend to agree, this is the guy that you build your midfield around for the years ahead. An explosive physical specimen, outstanding rugby player, looks really good on the international stage. Unfortunately, he has been injured. Well, he's injured currently, but when he's back, he's the man, you would imagine. Who goes with him? And what should England do in the meantime? That's where we're at still. So, I've made loads of videos about this sort of stuff before, so I would encourage you to go and check out videos in the channel. I've pointed out before that in the Premiership in England, the domestic competition, it is a terrible competition for developing people that can wear that 12 shirt on an international level. It's a fantastic league for Wales, who have several players that can play that place in international rugby, or will be able to in the future, Joe Hawkins and Nick Tompkins. It's a brilliant league to take the wage bill off of the Scottish teams and to develop those players like Rory Hutchinson and Cam Redpath. It's a fantastic league that pays Argentinians to wear that shirt. A couple of them are at Newcastle, in Moroni and Orlando. Obviously only one of them can wear 12 at any one time. It's fantastic for paying South Africans, some really brilliant South African players as well, to play their club rugby, and Andre Esterhazen and Bernard Yazzie van Rensburg for Harlequins and Bristol respectively. And Solomon Ikata, plying his trade at Leicester now, was at Exeter, but was at the World Cup with Tonga. These are all players who regularly turn out for their club teams wearing the 12 jersey, which of course blocks the ability for English players to wear that shirt. And lo and behold, this has been happening for years, and is it any wonder that we don't have many choices when it comes to our international team? As for players that are coming through, we do have some bright options. Seb Atkinson at Gloucester, Ollie Hartley, who's at Saracens now but was at Wasps, Tim Litchfield at Northampton, and Raketa Marcy White, who's at Sale Sharks, another player who was at Wasps. What a fantastic academy Wasps had, by the way. And since they've gone bust, they've just given their talent to other clubs who are reaping the benefit of it. It has to be said. The one I'm really most excited about, he's in the under-20 squad now. I think he might be in the England A squad, actually. Yeah, he's in the England A squad, isn't he? So that he'll play against, hopefully play against Portugal next weekend. You've got Ollie Hartley in that England A squad, and Rakiti Marcy White. They call him Ricky at Sale, and he looks a specimen. He's Tongan origin, feels like Manu Tuilagi in the way he plays, and he's playing with Manu Tuilagi as his kind of mentor at Sale Sharks at the minute. So watch out for this guy. Very excited about him in the long term. But that's all in the future. What about right now? The England midfield currently for the first two rounds of the Six Nations 2024 has been Fraser Dingwall, who does play a chunk of his rugby in the 12 shirt at Northampton Saints. He plays at 13 a little bit. In fact, I think he might have played at 13 more than 12, but at least he wears the 12 shirt for his club. And Henry Slade, who's been in great form and is a proven international with over 50 caps, almost all of them wearing the 13 jersey for England. So that's the midfield, and based on the options we've had, it kind of picked itself. You have to be happy with it. I have talked to months and months ago, I was advocating for Tommy Freeman to be moved into the centre. His club team have started doing that now. I think that's a potential long-term avenue. I'd love to see Freeman as a 12 in the future, but that's all for another day. We're talking about right here and right now. What would you do with England's midfield now that Manu Tuilagi is back in the squad? Your comments down below, and if you get value from the channel, please hit subscribe. I would love it if you would, and give the video a thumbs up. That helps me reach rugby fans around the world, because it's just me and I need your help. So what do you do? What would you do? Well, I think we have to look around the world at what successful international teams have done and are doing. And I think it's absolutely clear that there is a physical presence in the midfield. Now, when I say that, I'm not trying to say that Geordie Barrett at New Zealand is just a big lump, or Bundy Aki at Ireland, or Damian Dialende at South Africa are just big units. But they are absolutely that. They have much more to their game. But one thing, those three guys I mentioned, Samu Karevi for Australia, Sione Tuipulotu for Scotland, Jonathan Danty for France, Joshua Tuisova for Fiji. And even though he wears 13, I think it was very noticeable that having the physical presence of George North in the midfield for Wales made a massive difference to how they play. That physical presence in a midfield seems to be, as far as I'm concerned, an absolute non-negotiable for great international teams. And I'm not convinced Fraser Dingwall and Henry Slade bring that. They bring lots of other great things, but they do not bring that. And I think you've seen with England's attack. You see, what's interesting, a lot of people have talked about Fraser Dingwall and Henry Slade as a liability defensively because they're not big. I don't think that's so much of an issue. And actually, England with Felix Jones are adopting a new defensive system, and the blitz system looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it certainly worked when South Africa shut down Finn Russell in the World Cup using that technique and that strategy. We'll wait and see at Murrayfield in about 10 days' time whether England have the same success. But actually, I don't think the size in midfield is as... I mean, it has a role to play. I don't think it's as important in defence, for England anyway, as it is in attack. Because England's attack has not looked potent. And that isn't because they're not trying. I think it's because they're not denting the defensive line, which then creates a bit of chaos and holes and space elsewhere. And it's noticeable, France have not looked a good attacking force in this Six Nations, and Jonathan Danty has not been playing well. When Jonathan Danty's on his game and is punching holes and is making dents, then two things happen. Either he sets a platform but winning the gain line and you're able to play quick ball off it. Or here's the thing, and this is a little bit like NFL running backs. The threat of having one of these guys as a direct ball carrier creates space elsewhere. So in the NFL, a good running back means, yes, you can win yards by ground and pound, just running hard, head down with the ball. But the very threat of having a running back next to a quarterback means that the defence have to take care of that threat, and that creates space for the wide receivers. So I think it's the same with a midfield in rugby, and I think you need the threat of a hard direct run in order to create space for your wide men. And it seems to be the case when you look at international rugby and you look around the world at the sort of specimens that other teams are turning out, and certainly the best teams put out on the field. So moving back to England's midfield, and again, I've looked around the world, let's look back in the past. And even though they lost, England played really well, very, very well, in that 16-15 defeat to South Africa in a World Cup semi-final. It was a hair's breadth from a World Cup final, and they had Manu Tuilagi and Joe Marchant in the midfield. Ollie Lawrence was on the bench, if I remember rightly, so they had that physical threat, all-round threat off the bench as well. And Tuilagi and Marchant was a great combination, and Marchant got a bit more space because of the threat of Tuilagi. So that was the World Cup semi-final. You go further back in the World Cup when they beat Argentina, what was the score? 27-10, and it was exactly the same midfield. And it's not about it being Joe Marchant or Manu Tuilagi specifically that I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out that the different threats that you offer. And then you go further back. I'm thinking back to the Six Nations last year, and probably England's best performance in that, whilst it wasn't a great championship for them by any stretch. But the combination was Ollie Lawrence and Henry Slade. Ollie Lawrence was able to bring that kind of dynamic gain line threat, and that opened up space for people elsewhere. It was Ollie Lawrence himself who managed to score some tries in the wide channels as well. That's how good he is. Go back to when England drew 25-all at Twickenham in the autumn internationals. Again, that was a pretty miserable period of rugby for England. I was there at Twickenham for that game, and Manu Tuilagi did a job at providing that direct threat and that gain line platform which enabled, when they actually clicked into gear, England to play. Go back further. This is an interesting one because the 2022 Summer Test Series in Australia, England lost the first test. And who was their midfield? And I'm not saying this is the sole reason for the defeat, but in this match, if you remember, after about half an hour, Darcy Swain got a red card for Australia and they still managed to win 30-28, I think. And the midfield was Owen Farrell and Joe Marchant. England lacked that direct threat, that gain line winner. Again, not saying that's the only cause for the defeat, but it's interesting to note that they lost that test match, even with a man advantage for a large chunk of the game, and yet they won the following two tests when they made a change and put Guy Porter in instead of Joe Marchant. Guy Porter, a man who offers that gain line threat and that direct running challenge to his opposition. And England won both of those test matches. Not the only reason, but I just think it's an interesting one to look at. So when you look ahead to the Six Nations, I think it has to be Manu Tuilagi plus, well, at the moment, Slade or Dingwall. And that means you could have Manu Tuilagi wearing a 12 shirt with Henry Slade outside. That would probably be my preferred option. Or you can go Dingwall if you want to continue trying to develop Fraser Dingwall. And I understand the logic for that because Henry Slade is a known quantity. Fraser Dingwall's new to the international rugby. Fraser Dingwall at 12 and Manu Tuilagi at 13. But as far as I'm concerned, it has to be Manu plus one. And I know how frustrating that is for a lot of England fans because it feels like every time Manu Tuilagi gets fit again, we put all our eggs in that basket and then he gets injured again. And you can't make long-term plans with him. And anyway, now, what is he, 32? So will he be fit and ready in the next World Cup anyway? So maybe we should put our time into players that can be there. I get all of that. But here's the difference. Manu Tuilagi is not the main man anymore. Manu Tuilagi is a really useful guy to have in a squad and a good international player for when Ollie Lawrence is back. To back up Ollie Lawrence. And then, so while we don't have Ollie Lawrence, for the reasons I think I've just demonstrated, but hey, tell me if you disagree, I think it has to be Manu Tuilagi. As for Ollie Lawrence, when he is fit, the question becomes, does he wear 12 or does he wear 13? I think probably what Steve Borthwick will do is have him wearing 12 and as an inside centre, possibly with a bit of switching going on, depending on whether we're in attack or defence. I think there would be some merit in that. From my perspective, Ollie Lawrence can be a world-class outside centre. So why compromise that? That's where he's played the absolute vast majority of his rugby at club level. That is where he looks the best when he plays at club level. His best games are at 13, and it's one of the most difficult positions on the pitch to play from a defensive perspective. From an attacking perspective, he's absolutely dynamite. And I think Ollie Lawrence at 13 is the way to go. And for that reason, I could understand if we went Dingwall 12, Tuilagi 13. Because we're just going to change Tuilagi for Lawrence when Lawrence is fit. That's my thoughts. But let me know what you think. And if you, again, as I say, if you appreciate the content on the channel, then I'd really appreciate your subscription. That would mean a lot. But yeah, over to you. The old England midfield conundrum, what are you saying?